A disease is an orphan disease if its prevalence is less than 5 out of 10,000 people in the general population. As a whole, all pediatric malignancies represent 13 to 15 children out of 100,000. So it means that all cancers are rare diseases. And if you consider that cancer in children is represented by more than 60 different diseases, each of these pediatric cancer is a rare disease. All the pediatric cancers are different from cancer in adults. There are about 2 million people each year in Europe diagnosed with a cancer, and only 1% of them are children. And those diseases are different in children and in adults. The most frequent ones in children are leukemias, then brain tumors, and then other solid tumors. Among them, about 3/4 of the patients will survive. But there are still 25% of them who will die of the disease. And the disease with the most dismal outcomes are brain tumors, metastatic disease, such as metastatic neuroblastoma, bone sarcoma, soft tissue sarcomas, and some high-risk leukemias, including the acute myeloid leukemias. Indeed, for those patients who will die of the disease, there is an urgent need of new innovative therapies and a request for access as soon as possible to those innovative therapies developed in adults for children. And the good news is that in the last 10 or 15 years, because the knowledge about biology of cancer has dramatically increased, there are new agents with new mechanism of action, with new activity which are developed, opening avenues and hope for new treatments for cancer in adults and then for children. So the real goal and the need is to make these drugs accessible for children with cancer. I think there are 3 major steps to go forward. The first one is to start as soon as possible the development of a new compound in children. In the past, it took 7 to 10 years for a child to have access to a new compound, often after the compound was approved for marketing in a cancer in adult, or sometimes never. So now there is a need to start as soon as possible the development of a new compound in the pediatric population when it is relevant. The second goal is to prioritize, because there are among 500 new anti-cancer drugs developed each year in adults. We will never be able to develop these 500 drugs in children. So we need to pick up the best one, the one that are most likely to be the one effective. So prioritization of these drugs for their development in children is very important. And lastly, since it's a rare disease, we need to work together. We need to strengthen the networks we built during the last 50 years to develop clinical research for children with cancer. And by improving the capacity of the European community, of the European network to develop these drugs, we will speed up the development and squeeze the time in between the first day the drug enters the clinical development for children and the time the drug is fully approved as safe and effective drug to treat children with cancer. Well, actually, in 2007, there has been 51 drugs approved by EMEA at the European level. Among these 51 drugs, there were 13 for oncology. Only 3 of them had a pediatric indication for use in children. And if we look at the 3 drugs, there was only 1 very new drug that may improve further significantly the care of children, especially with leukemia. So it is still, there is not enough information in the files of those drugs being submitted for approval at the EMEA, information for the use in children. But although the regulation that was built and entered into force in 2007 will improve the likelihood of